We are talking playoffs, and now that he's here, it is time for Justin Herbert to show the world what he's made of, outdueling CJ Stroud and bringing home his first playoff victory.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, man? Welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. To make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, this is what it's all about. Justin Herbert suffered a plantar fascia injury, a sprained ankle on both sides, all just to get here to the playoffs. And now it's time for Justin Herbert to shine. Get that first playoff win. And it's all about controlling CJ Stroud, getting all kinds of pressure on him, making things and life extremely difficult. And then, of course, we wrap things up with our bold and game predictions.
Absolutely. We talked about it yesterday on the crossover. Two very similar teams, but the good thing is it's very easy to see how the Chargers can pull this off because they struggle with a lot of the same things that they do. But this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. David, for Justin Herbert to be at this point in his career with only having one playoff appearance, before this, his second playoff appearance in year 5 for him, it seems hard to believe when we've watched every game. But the Chargers got him here and got him here with, some wiggle room as well. Getting to 11 wins. They made it easily. They are the 5th seed in the AFC. And for most of the season, they didn't need him to be Superman. They probably wanted him, him to have to do a little bit less because he still had to kind of take over and be the offense for a big chunk of the season. But now it's the playoffs. Now it's do or die. It's win or go home. And now I don't think it's too much to ask for Justin Herbert to put this team on his back on Saturday and make sure they go out there and get a win because we know that he's capable of doing it.
He absolutely is, Daniel. We've seen it throughout this season, especially the latter part of the season where they kind of let things go a little bit in his favor. And Greg Roman said, hey, I'm going to stop beating my head against the wall and running the ball on early downs. I'm going to go ahead and give the ball to my all-world quarterback and let him orchestrate the offense and let the offense flow through him. And what do you know? You see much bigger yardage totals. You see a lot more success and you see more wins because Justin Herbert is that good. And so it's imperative that they continue to allow Justin Herbert to cook. And one of the ways that they do that with great effectiveness is utilizing play action. It got you here. You got to continue to use it. 72% completion percentage on play action and 8 touchdowns for Justin Herbert. The Chargers use play action 26.4% of the time this season. I want to see that ratcheted up quite a bit in this game. It is one of their biggest weapons, and it has to be used to beat the Texans.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think obviously the play action is always important, but not knowing what you have at wide receiver in this game, I think plays a factor in that too, because we know that Joshua Palmer is out. Quentin Johnston, you'd think mostly with an illness because that's when he stopped practicing, is questionable for this game. I like to think he plays. He probably plays, but what level of play is he going to have, right? What version of him are you going to get? So Justin Herbert, potentially without, 2 of his top 3 receivers, something that CJ Stroud's going to be dealing with as well, has to put the team on his back. And I think it's about coming through in the big moments, picking up a first down with your legs if you need to, right? The Texans have allowed 33 yards at least to quarterbacks 7 times so far this season and 2 out of the last 3 games. And I do think he will need some help, right? The Chargers line has to give him some time. And if they do, he's basically perfect. I mean, per next-gen stats, Herbert, 18 pass touchdowns and 0 interceptions when not under pressure in 2024. He's the first qualified quarterback since 2016 to have 0 interceptions when not under pressure because that's when they created a next-gen stats. If he's not pressured,
good, Daniel.
And we said it before, I mean, if he has time, he can make it work with Walmart employees if he has to, right? He can shred you with anybody. But you do hope that they do give him something. And I think the biggest question mark going into this game is what you're going to get from your run game because it would be great for him to have at least a little support and at least an efficient run game while also trying to find the fine line of not forcing it either.
For sure. And for the Chargers, like their success this season is tied directly to their rushing output. The Chargers are 2-6 when they do not rush for 100 yards. In all 6 of the Chargers' losses, they have ran for 94 yards or less. So the running game has to get going. And I strongly believe J.K. Dobbins will play. I think they're just still trying to do the load management with him because he's coming back from that MCL sprain. So the running backs obviously have to be a major factor in this game, but also Justin Herbert, as you mentioned, has to be involved in the running game as well. It's all hands on deck. It's everybody contributing in this facet of the game, which obviously we know makes your play action that much more effective because they have to account for the run and the pass. So getting that running game going, not beating your head against a wall, but utilizing it to great effectiveness, especially late in the game to salt the game away. You have to be able to run the ball when they know you're going to run it. That's about bringing that physical lunch pail attitude to this game.
Yeah, and the Texans are a pretty good run defense, right? They're not someone you can't run against, but they're pretty good. I'm at 11th in yards per game allowed, 9th in yards per carry allowed. What I would say though is they do rank 25th in 13 runs of 20 plus allowed. So they will give up some explosives, and that's why you hope so much that J.K. Dobbins can go.
Yes.
I wish I was as confident as you. He definitely seemed like he tweaked something in that last game, but it didn't seem to cause him to go out of the game. I don't know if they'd put him as questionable if it was a load management situation, but I have to think that if he can go, he's going to go. Will we see Ezekiel Elliott? I don't know, right? Gus Edwards, it's funny because we thought Zeke might have been insurance for Gus Edwards, and now it's looking like it's more about insurance for J.K. Dobbins, who's questionable more than anything. It'll be interesting to see who they put out there because when all 4 guys were healthy, Kimani Vidal was inactive. So is it going to be Gus, J.K., and Hassan Haskins? Will they bring up someone like Ezekiel Elliott for short yardage, goal line stuff? You'd think if you have Gus Edwards, you should be better in those situations. But I would say also, I think it's about the Chargers interior just holding up and doing enough. Like I don't need it to be perfect, right? Like I truly don't. And they're going to have struggles in their interior as well. But I like the group they should have out there, right? Zion Johnson off the injury report later in the week. Rashawn Slater, thankfully, off the injury report too, obviously on the outside. But Zion Johnson and Bradley Bozeman have improved throughout the season, and they've gotten better towards the end of the season. You probably have Jamari Sawyer starting at right guard, even with Trey Pipkins going to play more than likely. That's who's been at starting at practice, according to Daniel Popper. They just have to do enough, David. They basically the Houston Texans' strength are on the outside. They're edge rushers for sure. Tim Settle, though, can still get some pass rush. They still have some guys,
sacks.
Mario Edwards for sure. But you just can't let them wreck the game. If you give Justin Herbert some time, if you can have that communication, pass off the stunts and things like that, and just give him a chance, you're going to have a decent offensive day, in my opinion. And I think it's up to those guys to step up to do it.
I agree completely. Yeah, that interior has to just do enough to be able to give Justin Herbert time to be the surgeon that he is, because we know if he's given time, as the stats that you provided illustrated, he can make it work with pretty much anybody. And he is a quarterback that loves to spread the ball around. If you're open and you got a jersey on, he's going to hit you. That's what it is. And I think one of the guys that he likes to hit a lot is Ladd McConkey. And I think one of the things they have to really do in this game is to use motion to give Ladd McConkey more free releases. I'm sure the Texans are going to probably try to use Derek Stingley Jr. on Ladd McConkey in some of your key moments, right? So one of the things I've seen all year that the Chargers have done to kind of give Ladd some help is to move him around and get him going on a free release. If you can't get hands on Ladd, he's almost impossible to cover.
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday, just, how Ladd, especially with the uncertainty with the wide receivers, has to step up. Even as a rookie, you have to call on him to do it. I think it's up to the tight ends as well, right? I'm agreeing, a lot of motion, up the motion if you have to. You've been pretty disciplined as far as no penalties and things like that, especially recently. They've been pretty clean running that operation. But the tight ends have to step up as well. And it's not just the passing game, it's also the running game too. I do hope we see an uptick of Stone Smart, a couple of very athletic linebackers on the other side. With Alshire coming back this week from that nasty suspension he got from the Trevor Lawrence hit. You need it's all hands on deck. So you need all those groups to step up if you're going to have a good offensive day against what has probably become an underrated defense, honestly. But if the Chargers defense plays at their peak, they could dominate this Texans offense. And we're going to tell you exactly what they're going to have to do that. And it starts with chaos in front of CJ Stroud and keeping guys like Nico Collins and Joe Mixon down. We're getting all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of the endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, now that's a thing of the past. You see, taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with a TurboTax expert who can get you the work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers. No more wondering if you're missing out on deductions. Whether you've got one form or 20, TurboTax experts give you their give your taxes their undivided attention while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on what really matters. You won't have to lift a finger, but you'll get the peace of mind of knowing that your taxes are being handled by pros. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today to get matched with your expert who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guaranteed. I also need to tell you guys about PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's also the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy because unlike on other apps, with PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do, pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks, and PrizePicks is also the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Playoff PrizePicks is here, and you guys can get win this weekend with the Chargers. The only thing better than PrizePicks is playoff PrizePicks, and you can get action with Justin Herbert throwing for more than or less than 232.5 passing yards. And pair that with Ladd McConkey going for more than or less than 72.5 receiving yards. And it's as simple as that. You hit 2 projections, you win. Just download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Dave, let's get to our defensive keys for success here. And I think when you're looking at this Texans offense, it's interesting because CJ Stroud, obviously one of the better rookie seasons we've seen last year. And that offense was cooking last year, but it looked a little bit different than it does this year. And you have to mention at the start that they're going to be missing 2 of their top 3 receivers with Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell out for the season. It makes it very simple, kind of what you need to take away as far as who they're going to be trying to get the ball to. But it all starts with their quarterback number 7, CJ Stroud, who hasn't been that same guy. I mean, I think you look at his numbers and you see, it's not that different of numbers than he put up in his rookie season, truly. But more interceptions this year, definitely some more off-target throws, at least the games that I watch. I mean, just some really uncharacteristic misses by him, just missing open dudes.
Yeah.
But the biggest difference is I think what's in front of him, and that is the offensive line. And we know all about that with the, struggles the Chargers have had, especially on the interior. They're going through that even worse than the Chargers are. And I think it starts with the Chargers taking advantage of that and just creating chaos in front of CJ Stroud. If you can cause chaos in front of him, he is mortal. He's going to make some mistakes. He's going to miss some throws. And if the Chargers play at their best, they can dominate this offensive line. It has to be chaos. This is a guy that's been sacked 52 times this season. Justin Herbert has been sacked a career high this year. It's 41 times. So he's been sacked 11 times more than Justin Herbert's ever been sacked in a season. That's how bad it's been in front of him. And he's had 3 interceptions in the last 2 full games that he's played, 12 interceptions and 6 fumbles on the season. And what do they struggle with, David? Twists and stunts. Wouldn't you know it? And that was great hearing that from John Hickman. It's going to be up to Jesse Minter to find ways to create chaos in front of CJ Stroud. And if they do that, they can make a very long day for this Texans offense.
Yeah, the right side of the Texans offensive line especially is very, very inexperienced. Fisher, only 291 snaps at right tackle, 4 sacks allowed. Juice Scruggs, who is a center playing right guard, has only played 53 snaps at right guard. He has allowed 5 sacks on the season. So that right there should have a gigantic red bullseye on it saying, attack here. This is definitely a place where the Chargers should be trying to mix up their pass rushers.
Sure. Yeah.
Morgan Fox, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa on the inside. Just set up your matchups to take advantage of the interior of that offensive line because there is pressure to be had.
Well, let's not also discount what the Chargers have had on their own interior. Guys like Poona Ford, guys like Tier Tar, who could come through, and this could be the game. where they make a huge difference in that regard, right? I would say the next thing here is keeping Nico Collins and Joe Mixon down, because these are both guys who have gone off at times this season and put up really special numbers. But that was a long time ago, and it's been a little bit, but they've both shown that they can do it. So, I mean, if you're looking at Nico Collins, who, put up 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns last season, is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, missed some times this year, but the 4 games of 117 yards or more. That shows you what he can do at his best. The Chargers as a team have had 4 games of 117 yards or more. 2 from Ladd McConkey, 2 from Quentin Johnson. That dude's done it by himself. Yeah. But he finished the season with 4 games of 60 yards or less, right? And it's the same thing with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon has had big games. He had 100 yards or more in 5 of his first 6 games to start this season and was looking like he was the addition of the offseason. But 57 yards or less in 4 straight games to end the season, 26 yards or less in 3 of the last 4. And I know that the last game, obviously, they weren't playing their starters very long. So, I mean, it's hard to say that. But I'd say the big thing here, obviously, hey, if I'm the Chargers, I'm bracketing, I'm double teaming Nico Collins if I have to, as much as I possibly can, because he's the only wide receiver that scares me. And if John Mechie plays and beats me, if Robert Woods beats me, I'm going to have to live with that. But I think I have to take my chances with those guys to make sure it's not Nico Collins and their absolute best offensive player right now that beats me. And then with the Joe Mixon, if you let him get rolling, he's going to go. If you can stop him early, they'll stop feeding him. And I really, really hope, David, we get Denzel Perryman back for this game, who's questionable, because I just think he would be a huge, huge advantage, especially going up against his former team in a revenge game after he got shredded a little bit in coverage in the last playoffs when the Texans lost. For him to come back, be a heat-seeking missile against the run, and slow down Joe Mixon.
Denzel Perryman, I've said it many, many times, he is a tone setter for the Chargers defense. He is a guy that has incredible stopping power. When he hits you, you hit the deck and you don't go anywhere else. That is the type of linebacker that Denzel Perryman is. I absolutely love it. And yeah, I had double Nico Collins as one of my things. He is clearly the most dangerous weapon that the Texans offense has. He has 14 more targets than anybody else on the team. He accounts for a quarter of the Texans' first downs that they achieved this season. So he
went on IR, I'm pretty sure, at one point too. And that's with him missing a big chunk.
Yeah, so they're constantly looking to try to get the ball to him. And if they're not getting the ball to him, they're getting it to Joe Mixon. And you have to earn the right to rush the passer, and how you do that is by stopping the run early and stopping Joe Mixon. The Texans rushed for less than 100 yards in 5 of their 7 losses this year. Joe Mixon gets the majority of their carries, obviously over 1,000 yards. If you stop Mixon on 1st and 2nd down, then that's when you get to pin your ears back and lick your chops and go send Derwin James on the blitz and go get after this offensive line of the Texans. This is what you have to do, but you have to earn the right to be able to rush the passer by stopping Mixon early.
Yeah, if you can get him into a lot of 3rd and longs, it's what they don't want to do. Obviously, no team wants to, but this is a team that's specifically just not made well to do it. If you're the Buccaneers and you have a 3rd and 11, you feel okay about that because you have one of the best offensive lines in the league. That's not what you're going up against. If the Chargers can get them into those situations, I talked about it yesterday. I called the pass rushers out. Hey, you're making $30+ million a year. This has to be the game where you take over and dominate this offensive line, as you absolutely should. But I'm going to call on 2 more people for the Chargers on their defense, and that's the dynamic duo of Deion Henley and Derwin James. Those 2 dudes have played like all pros this season. They have to show up for this one and make game-changing plays. Both of these guys, as a blitzers, in coverage, both of them have been fantastic, and it could be a Deion Henley or Derwin James pick that decides this game. It could be a Deion Henley or a Derwin James sack that has a huge impact on this game and maybe takes points away. Take away the middle of the field from CJ Stroud. Your safeties are super banged up right now, which is why it's even more important for Derwin James to go super sane, reach the level of play that we know he has, and also for Deion Henley to show, hey, I am here. I have arrived. I'm one of the best linebackers in the league.
Yep, absolutely. And, the person who has the 2nd most receptions on the team is Dalton Schultz, the tight end. And fortunately, Derwin James and Deion Henley have been fantastic.
Tight ends.
Absolutely, have erased tight ends all season long. So that has to continue. Your superstars have to show up in the playoffs if you want to win.
And what did we see? Not to bring up Jacksonville, but we're talking about the first playoff game since 2022. It has to come up. What happened, right? You have to have guys that can make plays to make sure something like that doesn't happen. You have to have the defense that finished as the best defense in the league act like it on Saturday. And out of all the offenses that are in the AFC, they're probably getting the worst one. Maybe the Steelers the last month or so, but for the season, the Texans are probably that. This defense has played good against bad offenses. This has been a bad offense most of the season, but you have to make them a bad offense because anybody can show up any given Sunday, and they have good players on that side, so they're not just going to give it to you. But you know what it is. We have to get into our bold and our game predictions. I know I already said yesterday, I think the Chargers are going to win this game. You have to see what David thinks, and you also have to see what Athir thinks, and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First thing to tell you about FanDuel, though, because from big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's FanDuel, the app that gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Looks like the Chargers are going to go into this one as 2.5-point favorites. I picked them to win by 3 yesterday. I think that's about right. But the great thing about FanDuel is there's just so many more ways to bet than that. Just, not just the score, the over-under. You also can go with anytime touchdown scores, and that's one of my favorites. But there's always so much you can bet with on FanDuel, and they give you every stats, up-to-date everything, so you have all the information available to you to make the best bets. All you have to do, visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, David, well, it's time to get into our bold and our game predictions. But man, on the eve of the Chargers, first playoff game and since 2022, the first one in the Jim Harbaugh era, definitely just want to shout out the everydayers for giving us our best season ever, and truly just an unbelievable season as we've watched this fan base have something legit to be proud of, have something legit to cheer for, have something legit to be hopeful about, and I don't want to take that for granted in this big moment. Also, obviously, they are the Los Angeles Chargers, and just want to send our thoughts and prayers to anyone that's been affected by what has been one of the most devastating fires in our country's history. So it might seem a little bit menial to have conversations about sports, but I think what we hope to do is to be able to bring you a little bit of relief in a dark moment if you're having it, and hopefully, you can get the help that you need out there, because I know a lot of people are going through it right now.
Our thoughts and our prayers are with you and your families. Just rest assured of that.
And it means even more to us that you make us your first listen today. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out the new slate at Locked On NFL with a lot of playoff games and the NFL hitting a fever pitch right now. You can keep up with all of it. 2 shows a day with Tyler the Madman rolling in the morning, and later on with my guy Tony Wiggins as they bring on the people that cover their teams every single day, and no one else can say that on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from. David, let's get into some bold predictions, and we're going to try to get to as many as we can. I don't think this is going to be the last bold prediction show we're doing this year, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't shout out the everydayers anyway. So let's start with this one from Kevin, who says, DJ Chark, 4 receptions, 65 yards, and a game-sealing touchdown. This is interesting, David, because of how banged up the Chargers wide receiver core is. And also, last week he scored a touchdown, which was awesome to see. Awesome to see him get a little involved. Awesome to see him kind of get some juice and some life back into him after what has been a tumultuous season for him. And it does feel like there's a non-zero chance in a game like this, with what the Chargers have personnel-wise, that he could be an X factor.
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about it. The Chargers wide receiver room is definitely a little bit banged up, with Quentin Johnston being questionable, Josh Palmer being out. Simi Fehoko probably seems like he's in line to come back off of IR, but how involved is he going to be in the offense after being gone for most of the season? I think it's definitely something to think about what DJ Chark could do for this offense. And I think, one of the things that I liked against the Raiders is they did throw him a couple of deep passes. They did give him a couple of opportunities, maybe not the best ones, but they still did it. And so, and that's really what we were asking for, is just give him a chance. And now that he's scored a touchdown, I think that's going to go a long way with Justin Herbert to earn some of that trust and allow the Chargers to put him back out there and give him more opportunities.
Yeah, when I think what you saw from him in that last game, even if it's just kind of a tiny little piece, is like he caught a tough ball, right? Yeah. And there's just not been enough Chargers receivers making tough catches like that this year. So to have a kind of contested window where he brings in a touchdown pass that really put that game away, I thought was huge. Let's get to this next one here from Steak Bros. Might be my favorite one today. Scott Matlock scores. Texans linebackers get caught looking in the backfield too much. Man, I would love to see if this happens. I'm a big man TD. Little creativity with Greg Roman. Be creative without getting too cute is always what I ask. He has improved so much. It'd be fitting to see him get in a game like this. And it hasn't been a target for him this season, at least in the low red zone. I can't remember him sitting up and posting up in the end zone. For him to sneak out would be awesome. It might be an easy way to not get stuck inside the 5-yard line again.
Besides winning this playoff game, there's really not many more things that would make me happier than to see Scott Matlock score a touchdown.
Right.
I think that would be fantastic. And if Xander Horvath can score a touchdown,
Oh my God,
then Scott Matlock can score a touchdown as well. And that would be super funny and completely epic if we got to see that on Saturday.
I can't remember the last time a Chargers 300 player scored a touchdown. So that would be really, really awesome. I'll always love a big man touchdown for sure. And Scott Matlock has had decent hands when he's been throwing the ball this year. They're pretty sure-handed.
Pretty nice 10-yard run.
Yeah,
right
let's get this one from Guy Robichaud, who says, big game from our interior defensive line. Puna and Tart get a sack apiece. Puna will also break up a screen and have 3 tackles for loss. Tart will also add 2 tackles for loss and a forced fumble. I don't think all those things are going to happen, but I do think that the defensive interior could have a huge impact on this game, and I love shouting them out because they've been the unsung heroes, and it would be awesome for them to be the heroes of this game.
Hey, Puna Ford having a resurgent year by every single
The best
metric.
screen defender in the league also, which I love that shout out too.
He's got a nose for those screens, man. You just got no chance. You got no chance if Puna's on the field there. 3 sacks, 8 tackles for loss for him on the season. So a very, very good year. Tier Tart also a sack and 5 tackles for loss. So these two guys have really transformed how you see the Chargers defensive line room. Going into this season, it was by far and away the biggest problem that we saw on this team. Jim Harbaugh said, I don't think it's a problem. I think we're good there. And I thought in the moment that he was being just a coach trying to gas up his team.
Crazy, yeah.
He was 100% right. They completely changed this defensive line room. Hats off to them.
Yeah, and it would be nice to see him put the cherry on top of what has been a great kind of bounce back resurgent season for both of those guys. But maybe it's someone else that's causing havoc in the backfield, and that's what Athir teased earlier this week, that he had something big for us in the bold prediction show. Let's hear what he's got.
Daniel, this is your baby Athir. My bold prediction for Saturday. The Bear, Joey Bosa. I'm going 3 sacks, 2 forced fumble, 6 tackles. Chargers win 27-13. On to the divisional round. David, I love you.
Athir, I love you. Every time he says the Bear, I think of the show The Bear. The Big Bear, Joey Bosa. We talked about it a little bit earlier this week, and I love this bold prediction from you, Athir, because I can't think of many more better things. I mean, you're talking about Scott Matlock in the end zone, which would be great. To see Joey Bosa have the arc where it's him after getting doubted and shamed for being injured and all of the kind of tribulations that he went through, and also the self-inflicted things that he did in the last playoff run, for him to come back and have a dominant game in this one, I would say, yes, chef.
Absolutely. I mean, with Joey Bosa, I mean, it would be his first multi-sack game of the season. He does not have any of them up to this point. But we do know that, he broke his hand in the beginning of the year. He's also had to deal with a couple of other injuries.
Definitely.
That he's, trying to work his way back from. But to his credit, he was out there for 14 games. So I do have to give him credit where credit is due.
We all would have signed up for that.
Yeah, definitely. And this is redemption. This is an opportunity to wash away and erase everything that happened in Jacksonville and go out there and change the narrative for how you are seen. And man, it's just one of the last. It's the last. He is the last San Diego Charger. I would absolutely love to see him go out there and just take over the game.
Yeah, shout out Denzel Perryman, who also still counts as well, but did have a trip for the Raiders. So that's why we don't count him. But yeah, it would be great to see. I mean, not many people I'm rooting harder for in this game to kind of, have that moment. We also had this one from Chargers Eric, which I just want to mention real quick. Darius Davis will have 2 touchdowns this game. We'll have a Darren Sproles wild card versus Indianapolis type performance. Obviously, legendary playoff game where the Chargers knocked out, I believe, MVP Peyton Manning in the playoffs that year, which was sweet. But David, let's get to our bold predictions here. Who are you going to go with for this one?
Mine is, I talked about it earlier, your superstars got to show up and they got to play like stars. Derwin James notches 10 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. I think they're going to send him a lot in this game. They should, because he is one of the best blitzing safeties in the league, period.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's what he's the best blitzing safety. Also, just has been one of the best safeties. And it's funny because my bold prediction was the other half of that dynamic duo. I went with Deion Henley. It'll be interesting. I want to know how they're going to use Derwin, right? Just because I think a lot of it has to do with the trust they feel on the back end with guys like Eddie Jackson now back there, Tony Jefferson back there, right? A little uncertainty there. Maybe a Terrell Edmonds makes his Chargers debut. Who knows? I went with Deion Henley, 12 tackles, 1 interception, and a sack after getting his first last week. He comes back and gets his first career playoff interception. What I think is going to be a win for the Chargers. Like I said yesterday, I believe I said 27-24. John Aikman said, hey, that's pretty high scoring. Maybe he's right. I mean, I could also see it being like a 24-21 game, but I do believe with Jim Harbaugh, with Justin Herbert, with a better team than the Texans, the Chargers are going to pull this game off, as they absolutely should. This, like we've talked about, in the macro, it's not a disappointment of a season if you lose this game. But it'll be a disappointment in the playoffs because the Chargers should win this game, and I think they do it. David, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, so I do feel like it's going to be under 30 points, but not by much. But I do feel confident that the Chargers have more than enough firepower, and I feel like defensively they definitely should be able to dominate this game. With that being said, I will be in attendance for this game. I'm sitting right behind the Chargers bench. I'll be in section 129, row B. So if you see me, I'll also be in the blue lot tailgating before the game. But it's because I am very confident that the Chargers are going to win this game 28-20.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I'd love to see it be, an 8-point game. FanDuel has it in 2.5. We both have it at more than that. If the Chargers have who we think they're going to have, especially J.K. Dobbins, who I think, his and Quentin Johnston's availability kind of looms over this game. If they have both those guys, they should absolutely be able to put up enough to beat this Houston Texans team. But they better, because I want to be here on Saturday, a little bonus live show talking about Justin Herbert's first playoff victory. Another week of game week next week, game shows next week. Chargers, get it done. Get Justin Herbert that well-deserved first playoff victory, and be back with us on Saturday night to talk about it. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.